Well, that was a lot of work. As you can see, I've hauled a bunch of wood into my shop. This is wood that I purchased from one of the woodworking guilds that I belong to. They have a program of collecting urban wood. So those are trees that are down, fallen down, blown down, cut down because they're diseased. They take them, they have them sawn up, and they sell them to members at, in this case, I only paid $3 a board foot. I got some red oak, I have cherry, I have eucalyptus, and I have some chestnuts, some great woods that I can work with. Now, all of these woods are still a little bit wet. Now, when these trees were cut down, they were probably close to 40%. They've been stored outside for about a year and a half. And in this case, the cherry is down to about 16, 17%. The eucalyptus is a little bit wetter. The red oak is down to about 18%, and the chestnut is also down to about 18%. So what I need to do now is bring these woods inside my house where I can further dry them down, and I'm going to speed that up a little bit with a dehydrator, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. Now on top here I have some cherry, and you can see that it's only an inch thick. It's what we call 4/4. This is 6/4 down here, and it's really ugly stuff, but I bought it anyway because it's small enough I could maybe use it for boxes or cutting boards or something. I'm going to take this off and go down to the longer woods here. Some of these are over 9 feet. I can't put 9 feet. I stack all my wood vertically in my storage room, and I purchase wood usually a year, year and a half, or even 2 years ahead of time so that I can slowly dry it. This wood is way too big for me, so I'm going to have to start cutting it down. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and then we'll get down to the longer pieces and do a little bit of cutting, and we'll double check some of those moisture contents. So you can see how all of those ends are jagged. So I need to square these off, but I can't even get to that because these 9-foot boards are too long. What I'm going to do, I want to get these down to about 7 feet. So if I cut off about 2 feet of all of these and get a nice square cut, then I can move these around on the sawhorses and start managing. So I'm going to start doing that. Okay, so I've got this moved off. I'm just checking my oak here. This is 19. I've checked up and down. It's about 18, 19%. So that's good. You can see where I put a mark in here. I'm going to cut it off, and I'm unplugged right now, but I've set my blade here. You can see that my blade is just right at the bottom here, which is perfect. It means I might score this a tiny bit, but I'm not concerned about that because what I want to do is make a nice straight cut so that when I stand this wood up, it's not going to fall over. Then I'm going to do some end sealing right away as well so that these ends are not going to split. So let's do the cut first of all. Yeah, it didn't go all the way through, so I'm going to have to hand cut the last bit of that. There we go. Okay. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to end seal these. Let's talk about end sealing for a moment. So end sealing is super important. Whenever we cut a tree down, the first thing we do is we actually seal the butt so that right where the tree is cut off at the root, we end seal. But all the way along, every time we cut wood, we end seal it, and it saves so much wood because the wood tends to split up here, just like I mentioned in the last video. Now, the product that I recommend is end seal, but you know what? There's other things that you can use as well. I have this. My last batch of it, I'm still using it up. It lasts forever. This is 4 or 5 years old now. I'm still using it. In fact, I even use the old brush, and it'll still paint that on there. The other thing you can do, you can use a little bit of glue, and you mix it. You can actually mix it a little bit with water, about maybe 25% water, just so that you get a slurry that's on there. It'll take a little while to dry, but it gives a really good seal on that. A lot of people use paint. They use latex paint. If you use latex paint, you have to put like 20 coats on it because latex paint doesn't seal well. So you're far better off using something that seals a lot better. And all you have to do, there's no You know, there's no big deal with it. You just slap it on there, coat it on. If you get some on the other wood below, it doesn't matter. This is going to take a little while to dry on here, but it doesn't matter because we just start using everything right when it's damp like this. It'll dry up there in the next 2 or 3 hours or so, maybe less than that. But in the meantime, it's all sealed, and now this wood is not going to split, or the chances of it splitting are very, very low. So the next thing I need to do, I've got, you can see one end here, and you can see how it's crooked already. So I'm going to be taking that and cutting that off. In the meantime, I'm going to flip this one around and square off the other end of this one. I'm going to take that, I'm going to mark it with red oak, and the moisture content on this was 18%. So I'm marking that right on the wood. I'll take that in there and I'll be able to monitor that in my workshop or in my storage room. Now the next wood that I have to do some trimming on here is something called eucalyptus, and it's not native to my area, so where it came from I'm not sure, but somebody would have planted this as a tree in their yard probably 100 years ago. And when I do some checking on this, the species number wasn't available. I had to call Wagner to get the species number for this wood, and I've been doing some checking here, and it's actually looking like it's around 18%. So I'm running down the board here. There's 12, there's 18, there's 17, and on the other board I'm getting 16, 17, 18. So I'm going to call it 18% because it's a little bit variable, but it's actually very rough. You can see how rough it is. Now it's warped here, and the reason it's warped is it's got this massive knot here, so it's twisted this part up. So I need to measure this. The first thing I'm going to do is lift this board on top of the smaller one here so that I have it up and I can support this cut. And I'm going to cut this at 7 feet and get rid of this part of it here. You can see it's got big massive rings there. That'll be interesting to work with. Okay, now I'm getting to the chestnut. I'm very excited to be getting some chestnut. I've never worked with it. So it's 21, 20, 22, 19, 19. So it's not so bad. It's going to take probably, well, it's going to take a few months to get down to a workable relative humidity. What I need to do, or moisture content, I need to do, there's about 2 feet up here. This isn't 7 feet, but I'm going to cut it off at this jog in here anyway. I'm going to call it 19%. Do a little bit of end sealing. Doesn't have to be pretty. This needs to be nicely coated. Okay, I want to take a moment to talk about dehumidifiers. And they're all very similar. They all have a thermostat on them. So if the moisture in the air is a little bit higher, you might need to turn it up a little bit higher. And when you do that, it clicks on and off. These do not run, this one anyway, many of them do not run continuously. They sort of cycle through. And it's very much like, it works very similar to the way your refrigerator works. So what's happened inside, there's a fan, and the fan, what it does is it moves air across this coil here. And this coil freezes up or gets cold, just like your refrigerator. And in this case, when the fan blows the air across the coils, it condenses on there and it comes into this little tray, and then it drips into, in this case, a square sort of a bucket. And this needs to be replaced periodically when it gets full. Now, you won't be able to see it there, but most of these have a little indicator, not an indicator, but a little plunger thing here, that when the water fills up in here, it automatically turns the dehumidifier off. So that's another feature that you can have on most dehumidifiers. Now, if you have a problem with wet wood and you live in a moist area, and it really depends where you live and the type of season, but I use this typically once the humidity in the air gets over 65%, and then I start using my dehumidifier to take some of the moisture out of my wood. Let's go on to the next step. Now, the next thing that is kind of a must, you really should have something called a hygrometer, and this is on this side. There's a thermometer on this side, measures the temperature of the air, but the hygrometer is what I use here, and it measures the content of the moisture in the air. And when you get a higher moisture content, it sort of relates to how much moisture is in your wood. Now, where I live, 65% moisture in the air is pretty common, but even when I buy wood, fresh wood off a mill, and it's 40%, I can leave that wood outside, and even though the moisture in the air is 65%, it will still dry the wood down to 14%. But when it's outside, I want to get it even lower. I need to get it down to around 11 or 12, and that's where the hygrometer comes in handy, because then I can use a dehumidifier in my wood room to get it from 14% down to 8 or 9%, whatever it is that I want that moisture wood content to be. Now, the reason this is important, all of this moisture stuff, is we want to know the equilibrium of the wood. So what that means is the point where the wood will not absorb or give off moisture, and that means the wood won't expand or contract, or it will be minimal. Now, I forgot to mention this in the last video, but check this out. So I've talked about this last, but I didn't show you this on the last video. You can go to the Wagner Meter website and download an app to your phone that will tell you what the moisture content of the wood needs to be where that project is going to live. So this is what the app looks like. So you'll go there, you can click on the Wagner website. There's a link for apps. You can go there, you download it. Here's what it looks like, and here's how it works. So here's the first thing you need to know is roughly what the temperature. If it's inside, it's probably going to be around 68 degrees. If your moisture content, let's say your average moisture content is, let's say it's 40%. And that, it may vary over, from summer to winter. It's going to vary, but you pick a number that is sort of an average. And then when you go to calculate, look at that. It tells you what the moisture content of the wood that when your project is finished and got a finish on it, it's all put together, it wants to be around 8%. And it could be a little higher, could be a little bit lower, but what you definitely don't want is 20% or 3%. You want something in the neighborhood of 8%. And that's what we work for in woodworking, is to keep things stable so that they're not going to move and change. Well, one last thing I want to share with you before I go, and I only stumbled across this a few days ago. I want to share with you a video. This is from the city of Baltimore, and they have some people in their area who are using urban wood, and it's perfect. Because across America, there are tens of thousands of trees that have to be cut down, or they get blown down or washed down from flooding, all sorts of things. What happens to all of these trees? There's tens of thousands of really good lumber, just like I cut up today, that can be used for woodworking projects. And when it's donated, when it's free, basically all it does is get cut down and hauled away somewhere. And when you get that wood free, all you have to do is pay for somebody to cut it up, and then we, the woodworkers, get that wood and it's wet. So now we have to do some drying, which is what I've just been talking about today. So that video is really interesting. It'll pop up here, and they're not trying to sell anything. They're just giving some information on urban wood and what people can do to use some of that urban wood. And as woodworkers, I don't think there's anything more appropriate for us to have a look at. So I'm Colin Canet for Woodwork Web. I hope you'll enjoy that video.